Segment 2, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Find us on the web at www.ntnm.org, communitypolicingcaps24.org. There are some interesting changes happening. What's old becomes new, what new becomes old. There's going to be an effort to try to get the police and the community a little more face-to-face and a little more familiarity, and that's the right way to do things, rather than somebody sitting in an ivory tower somewhere pointing dots and thinking that things can be done via social media or computers when nothing beats face-to-face interaction. It is a pleasure to introduce you to my next guest you've seen before, who actually, for somebody who gets involved in politics sometimes, is a very popular guy I haven't heard a bad word about. You have to wonder about that. But,
wonder who we're talking to then.
somebody who's also an investment banker, involved in the charter school movement, which I'm a real big fan of, because, you know, I think choice in education is important, very important. Because not all sizes fit one. You know, not every, however you say that. And that is Alvin Boutte. Hey, Alvin, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Avi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you know what? We just had an election. And the fact of the matter is, without wanting to, you know, even though, like, you know, we had a president from our own city who did help the city in certain ways that a lot of people don't realize, the fact is that there are going to be some changes specifically with things like charter schools.
Yes.
Because, you know, now you've got a president who wants to, well, I like the idea of deregulation. I also have, to tell you the truth, even though I can't stand Trump and wouldn't have voted for him to save my life, I didn't vote for Hillary either.
Okay. She's almost a neighbor.
Pardon?
She grew up down the street, no?
Not down, she was actually born.
Okay.
She was born, no. She was born at Edgewater Hospital.
Okay. And her father had a business on Sheridan and Chase.
Oh, that I didn't know.
On the corner store there.
That I didn't know.
Yep.
Okay, I knew she grew up in Park Ridge, which isn't very far at all.
Okay.
But no, I didn't vote for her either. And you know, if you've got to vote for the lesser of two evils, I'll choose neither.
Okay.
So I voted for John Kasich, actually, because I thought he was the only guy who was actually trying to bring the country together. And it'd be very nice if there was at least a talking dialogue between the right and the left.
True. The campaigns were just so bizarre from the start with the primaries that people thought that was crazy when I kept saying that Hillary needed a competitive primary. There was always that effort to say, clear out the field, it's her turn, and you can't do that if you're going to expect someone to win. They have to be challenged. And, you know, I voted for Hillary. Didn't have the gumption to pull it out in the end.
You know, the one thing I'll say is, and I don't blame anybody for voting against the other person at all, I can more than understand it, is that if you can't beat Trump, something's very wrong. And the fact of the matter is, even though it's almost always a pattern of 8 years Republican, 8 years Democrat, the Democrats really had an opportunity to really take this, because nobody polled worse against Democrats, no matter who the Democrat was, than Trump.
But then what do we say about the Republicans as well? Because Trump's an outside Republican, and he crushed everybody, even in the poll numbers. For the guy that nobody was supposed to lose to,
I think it says a lot about the country the wrong way.
He killed everybody.
You know what? I couldn't believe it. I frankly, you know, first of all, I guess correctly, I didn't realize how many Republicans were for him, because they correctly felt too much shame to say so publicly. You know, the guy is an absolute no good. I mean, it could turn out, listen, hopefully, God willing, some of his actions will at least turn out a lot better than he is.
Yep.
Because I am not a fan, as a matter of fact. I was telling a story at an earlier taping. I'm a night owl. As anybody who's a Facebook person will see me post late at night and all the rest of it. So if I've got to wake up at 10 o'clock, I always set it to Channel 7 to The Voice. Because those ladies are so irritating. They'll make me want to get out of bed and run and turn off the TV immediately.
Sure.
You know, a couple days ago, Trump had his first press conference since being elected. And that preempted The View that day.
Okay.
So I'm not a big fan of Stephanopoulos, but you know, like I heard him and he was irritating, but he didn't irritate me enough to get up. Then Martha Raddatz, who I really can't stand. But then it took 2 words out of Trump's mouth to get me out of bed and shut that TV.
Yeah, yeah. It was quite the press conference. I think he finished it off saying something about his cabinet and said, "They're fired." I was like, did he really just say that? He really did.
You know, I could never watch that real. I can honestly say I've never been able to stand the guy since I was first exposed to his existence.
Oh wow. I've been in finance my whole life, so I keep an open mind with a lot of people that are doing a lot of different deals and things.
No,
that
that's
do.
different. You
So
know,
I've
but
always
business is business.
Looked and I wouldn't say I admired because they always seemed kind of weird and kind of creepy, but it was always interesting to take a look at. And of course, not being in New York, being in Chicago, we have our own people that we look at and we emulate and we try and follow and do business with. But from afar, it was interesting, at least especially because of his involvement in boxing. I was always a big boxing fan as a kid, and
Oh, interesting.
to see the two characters of he and Don King together promoting fights, that always cracked me up.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah,
I used to be a big boxing fan.
yeah, they were because Atlantic City. He had all the Atlantic City hotels. So Don King was doing a lot of fights there. And my dad used to always go to the Tyson fights with his buddies. And so I was always watching fights.
Very short fights.
Yes, very short fights.
Boy, I learned real early. You don't miss the opening bell.
No.
With an
not
early
with
Mike Tyson
Now with the
fight.
Tyson fight. Now with the Tyson fight.
You know, he never should have lost the fight. I mean, if he didn't, I honestly think that what was it Customato that was handling him?
Yes.
If Cuss hadn't passed away, I think he would have been okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. People get comfortable or uncomfortable and look for different things and different people, and he looked outside and got in with some idiots, and they didn't look out for him, and his training went down and his regiment went down. And
No, but they never do. You know, that's I hate to say it, but I've been following this stuff long enough, and I have trouble following some of the fights now because, you know, I hate to see these guys fight one too many fights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was cringing the last 2 or 3 Ali fights, and I don't think I was wrong to cringe either, based on what wound up happening.
yeah, I was a little kid back then. So
You know, I'm older. I'm older than you, but I actually I remember him in the Olympics.
Okay.
I was 8 years old at the time.
Wow.
But you know, like we used to love watching like the Saturday night fights on. There were Saturday night fights on Channel 7 for 45 minutes,
Yep.
followed by Make That Spear,
Yeah.
which
By
was
the
like a
time I-
15-minute bowling
By
show.
the time I was a kid, it was the Saturday morning fights on Channel 2, I think,
Yeah.
on CBS.
But at the time, it was cool because at time there was not more than 1 or 2 sanctioning divisions, and you know, it's like you didn't have like 4 or 5 different champions that were paper champions.
Sure.
You really had to go through the best,
Okay.
and that's before pay-per-view. So sometimes you'd see the very best fights,
Okay.
and at the very least you'd hear them on radio. I still remember the thing that really clinched me as a boxing fan was I was listening on the radio to Floyd Patterson and Ingemar Johansson, and there were about 3 or 4 knockdowns per round.
Wow.
That was just so, and there was
Yeah.
a great announcer.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I get a kick out of going to the local fights. They don't have a lot of pro fights locally, but there's a fight at the Belvedere in Elk Grove Village on the, actually right around the time this is going to view. Bobby Hitz does fights periodically there. And then there's, of course, Cicero still has fights at the Park District, which is probably the most entertaining place to go watch semi-pro Golden Glove fights. Yeah. And tequila's only $2.
Sounds good to me. No, I've never actually seen a lot. That's not true. I was at Maywood Park one time, where as a side feature,
Sure.
before the races, they had some Golden Gloves matches.
Okay.
So I
Those are
did.
the fun ones. The local kids. I mean, these are kids coming up, scrapping, going to the park district, learning how to fight. Probably, through a Jesse White program or something like that. And These kids are, they're survivors, and they're putting everything on the line to make a living and get out of the neighborhoods. I
wish him luck.
Yeah, the kid particularly that I like, he's pro now, from West Town in Chicago, Samaje Thomas, and he's just a great kid, and he's got pro fights coming up here, so it's going to be exciting.
Very cool.
Killed in a boxer.
I the one fight I really did want to go to was I think it was in Chicago. I think when Muhammad Ali beat Ernie Terrell, that was in Chicago. I did happen to see Ernie Terrell, but Ernie Terrell actually had a musical group. And it was actually his musical group that performed at my college.
Okay. And
they were seriously good.
Yeah.
Well, his sister was like a legend in the music industry.
Was she really?
She died before her time, but if Google her, look her up.
Okay.
She's somebody who she would have survived, and she didn't die from drugs or anything.
Okay.
She got like very ill.
I think he just passed away recently.
Didn't he did pass away recently.
No, he lived in Roseland, so I used to see him every once in a while. At like my friend has a shoe shine parlor right there on 111th and Racine, and he would come in there on Saturdays to get his shoe shined.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because he was the biggest heavyweight of them all at the time.
He was still a big man.
And all he had was a jab. He didn't have any real knockout punch whatsoever.
Okay. Interesting.
So, but he was a Chicago. I've always cheered for the Chicago guys.
We have to cheer for the Chicagoans.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you see good things here? I mean, we've only got a couple of minutes left here. You see good things happening for the charter schools?
I do. Locally and nationally. I think nationally there's going to be more money coming in education, period. I think there's a lot of infrastructure bills that are being talked about. So that's a good thing. Charter schools, within the state of Illinois, we're having some good things happening because the State Charter Commission is doing what they have the ability to do. They're actually putting schools under the State Charter Commission. Recently, when Betty Shabazz had issues with CPS, they challenged to the state, and now there's 3 additional schools under the state. I sit on the board of 2 of them, so Betty Shabazz and a Mandala Charter School. So it gives, some flexibility, some choice, I guess, is the best word to say with it.
Choice is important. Sometimes it's just a matter of one teacher.
Exactly. And it gets CPS motivated to do the right thing and not necessarily be as critical or political in their choice of charter schools. They love the large behemoth charter schools, and nothing's wrong with the Nobles and the CICSs. They do a great job, but you have to have room for the little ones that are they're bringing the kids up with a different model.
It might be easier for them paperwork-wise, but the fact of the matter is, when I see some of these, rather than build an extra school around here, they were tacking onto existing schools. I think, especially a grammar school, when it gets big past a certain point, how can the principal, how can the counselors know who the kids are?
Yeah, exactly. The school, for example, this grade school I went to was over here, North Shore School on Sheridan Chase. I think our 8th grade was 5 kids. 5 kids in the 8th grade.
Oh, I went to a much bigger private school. We had 22 kids in 8th grade. And we were the biggest class in the whole school.
Oh, wow.
There was 200 kids in the whole school.
Wow. Neither of us are competing on the 45 kids that CPS is piling in the classrooms. So
no, it's interesting, though, because in the old days, I've had people tell me they've been in classes from 45 to 55, and people really excelled then academically, but it was also a very different world.
Sure.
Yeah, we're starting to run out of time. Well, I know people can look for you on Facebook if they want to contact you. And listen, I want to wish you all the luck in the world in business.
Thank you,
Alvin. And of course, we never know what we're going to talk about. Boxing is always interesting to me. Not that I was ever any good at it.
Yeah, it takes one bad hit to say
no, I'm
thanks.
just not skilled, trust me. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sonny Hirsch. Alvin Boutte. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Avi.